Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate Day number 1090, 1090, April the 1st, 2020, Wednesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, it's April Fool's Day, so you're going to get a lot of bad April Fool's Day jokes. Try to ignore them. That's what I do. Of course, you know it is Wednesday, and that's the day that I have chicken and take out the trash. So I'll be looking forward to some chicken later. I'm thinking maybe some stuffed chicken, broccoli and cheese stuffed chicken with some biscuits. As you know, I like biscuits with a lot of butter and jelly, preferably strawberry jam, and some hot chocolate. Hot chocolate. I drink a lot of hot chocolate and Hawaiian punch. I live on hot chocolate and Hawaiian punch. But other than that, let's get on with the news of the day. Well, it's another day and another disastrous Joe Biden interview. This time on the Commie News Network. So he's on the Commie News Network, and again, he's trying to babble his way through another interview and pretend like he's competent and has a clue, when in fact we all know he does not. You have to wonder why they continue to have him on MSNBC and CNN and ABC. Are they doing this to further expose him to the public so more and more people get to watch him look like he's senile? I mean, if they want to help Joe, they'd keep him off TV and focus on everything but that. But they keep having him on. Almost makes you think that they're trying to, promote how nuts he is, how out of his mind he is, so that they can set him up for the fail. And he and the people, he anyway, is probably not smart enough to realize or coherent enough to realize what's being done to him. And likely the people around him, which we know are ex-Rotten Reverend Clinton people, are probably the ones who say, put him out there, put him out there. If you want to get rid of Burisma Joe, keep putting him on TV. So why do they keep putting him on TV? Just a thought. So he's on this interview with the Commie News Network, and he attempts to give 3 bullet points for what we need to be doing right now. And he says, number 1, we need to get more tests. Really? Well, gosh, I'm certainly glad we have Burisma Joe to let us know that we'd like to get more tests. Boy, he's brilliant. Then he says, we need to track who is infected, track the infected people to find out who they've been in contact with. Again. Really? I mean, this guy is way behind the curve, man. This is stuff that we know, everybody knows. We don't need Burisma Joe to come on TV and tell us that when you're trying to get a handle on a virus, that you want to test as many people as possible, particularly in infected areas, and that you want to find out who infected people have been in contact with. Well, that's been going on for thousands of years as people try to get their handle on these various types of viruses, which have been going on for thousands of years. You about the medieval times, and they were basically doing this. These are like the ABCs of how you get a handle on a virus. As if we need Burisma Joe to come on the Commie News Network and tell us this. I mean, we already know this. And then, of course, his third point, he lost track of himself. After doing the second point, he lost track of the fact that he gave us 3 bullet points, and he forgets all about giving us the third one. Again, he can't completely answer any question. He cannot fully make it through the answer to any question. He cannot complete the thought. He cannot. It stays in his mind just long enough to babble for a minute or so, and then it goes away. He forgets the fact that he was trying to give us 3 points. He babbles into psychobabble somewhere around point 1, point 2, and loses track. And what he does tell us are things that everybody knows. It's the ABCs. I mean, this is the most simple thing in the world. A 12-year-old could tell us that. And it's already being done. Nothing here is new. Again, this guy is he's out of it. But he also says that Trump should establish and set up a task force. Yeah, well, Trump set up the task force on January 29th, Joe. He set up the task force about 2 months ago. 2 months ago. You remember, Joe, 2 months ago on January 29th when Trump set up the coronavirus task force, and on that particular day you did a couple of interviews where you focused on impeaching Trump. And then right after that, he imposed the travel ban. Then you spent the next week talking about how he was xenophobic for putting on a travel ban. Now, Burisma Joe doesn't remember this because Burisma Joe doesn't remember what he had for lunch today. So I wouldn't expect him to remember this. But we do, and it's all documented on video. Yes, there's a lot of video documentation going down right now, and it's all going to come back just as soon as the Democratic convention is over and the nominee is named, and I don't think it's going to be Burisma Joe for this very reason of how much videotape they have that will just destroy him and the demo commies right along with him and their allies in the fake news media, who we can go back to the end of January to the day that Trump did two things back in January. He imposed the travel ban on China, and he started the coronavirus task force. If you go back and look at the media, the left-wing media, the fake news media, and left-wing politicians, you will find that they were totally obsessed with, at that time, impeachment, and they were totally obsessed with Trump being a xenophobe for wanting to have a travel ban on China, and they were basically not taking the coronavirus as anything to worry about. They were saying, "No, it's just no worse than the flu." It's all over left-wing media reports going back to that time. Now they want to try to, as they always do, try to rewrite history and change the narrative and pretend what they said they didn't say or what they didn't say they did say. But the good news is that we have something called archiving. We have something called history. You can go back on YouTube or you can go back on Google and you can pull all these articles and all these videos and you can see what actually was happening when Trump was imposing a travel ban on China and when he created the coronavirus task force. We can go back and see what was actually happening as opposed to what we're being told was happening. It's all lies. And the RNC has the evidence. Let's hope that they are smart enough to be cataloging all this. And in fact, now's not the time, honestly. Politically speaking, it's not the time. Not a good move right now. But as soon as we get past this thing curves downward and life begins to get back to normal, I do hope and expect that Republican operatives, Republican members of Congress are going to come out and clear the air and set the record straight on exactly who was saying what when. And you don't have to worry about President Trump. Believe me, he knows right now is not the time. He knows right now is not the time. But believe me, when that time comes here in a couple of weeks, you can bet that he is going to do this himself. He's going to recite what people were saying back when he imposed the travel ban and when he set up this corona task force virus. He's going to be recalling and telling the fake news media and his daily pressers exactly what they were all saying and what left-wing politicians like Madam Botox, Pelosi Galore, Chuck the Cuck Schumer, and AOC and all the rest, what they were saying. All they were talking about was impeachment while he was putting together the task force. When he did the travel restriction on China, they were all talking about what a xenophobe he is. Oh yes, it's on the record. It's not hard to find. And I know that Trump is not going to let that go. And hopefully Republicans and Republican strategists, members of Congress, Republicans, are also going to be chomping at the bit for that day because it is coming. It is coming. Payback is coming. Now's not the time, but it is not far away. Believe me. Well, it looks like Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz has now released a preliminary report, not the full report, not the full detailed report, that's coming, but just a preliminary report on his recent audit. So over the past several months, since going back even before the release of the IG report, when he did the first report, the one on Comey and on the original FISA report, he began, along with the Inspector General's office, to do an audit of the last 5 years of FISA warrants leading up to the current time. Now he has completed that. His full report is coming out soon, but he gave a preliminary of what's coming, and he has basically found that there were many more errors found in all of the 29 FISA applications that they have reviewed. And he is saying now, Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz is now saying that he does not have confidence that the FBI has executed its Woods procedures in compliance with FBI policy. In other words, nothing has really changed. Not only that, there were 5 of these 29 that they could not even find the Woods reports on. So there you go, Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz basically saying, yeah, we went back and looked at 5 years worth of FISAs, and it wasn't just the one on Carter Page. Oh, no. It's damn near every FISA they do. Every FISA they've done in the last 5 years is full of errors. Full of errors, and I use that term errors loosely. These are not errors. They're breaking the rules. Why? Because they can. Because they're never held accountable, Mr. Durham. You want to stop this, Mr. Durham? Throw some asses in jail. You don't need any new regulations or guidelines. I'm pretty sure that the original FISA guidelines, remember how we got the Woods file. We got the Woods file because Uncle Bob the Executioner, back at the time when he was the FBI director, was also doing a lot of breaking of law and policy in regards to getting FISA warrants. So Uncle Bob the Executioner said, well, here's my plan. We're going to have this Woods procedure. That'll make sure it's all done right. They just ignored that too. Why? Because no one was held accountable back at that time. So they come up with, well, we'll just have some more stringent procedures and some more bullshit that we'll go through before we get a FISA. And what do? They completely ignore it. Why? Because no one will ever be held accountable. I mean, how long does this have to go on? And this is not just recent with the FISA, since 2011 or even since 76. We know, we know that since the CIA was first created back in 1947, you can start in 1947, and you can go with or you can look under the Hoover FBI, going all the way back to the 1930s. These two organizations, the FBI and CIA, have never followed the rules. They always break the rules, and no one is ever really held accountable. Never. So you don't need more rules if in fact breaking the rules does not result in any real punishment. It just results in making more rules. If you don't enforce the rules, or if there's no penalty for breaking the rules, why would anybody follow the damn rules? I mean, isn't this fairly simple? If you tell your child not to act up in a public place, and your child continues to act up in a public place, and the child is never disciplined like we were, like if me or my sisters acted up in a public place, my dad or mom politely got us up, walked us out of the restaurant, or wherever we were, took us outside, and spanked the shit out of us. And it usually worked. Took a few spankings, but eventually we got the message. So if you tell your child don't do something, and they do it anyway, to test you, which is exactly what they're doing, to see what they can get away with, and you let them get away with it, and you never punish them for it, they'll just keep doing it. And then anything else that you tell them, not to do this, or to clean your room. They don't clean your room. Why? What are you going to do? Oh, you're going to ground them. Really? You ground them for what, 15 minutes, and then you lose enthusiasm, and pretty soon they're out playing again? They know you're not going to do anything, and your kids will walk all over you. Everyone knows people who has kids like this, that their kids walk all over the parents because they know the parents never really dropped the hammer. Now, that wasn't my parents. No, that wasn't my parents. No, we got the hammer dropped on us. Believe me. And as a result, me and my sisters, we are fairly well-behaved people, and we're fairly well-behaved kids, because we knew there was consequences for what we were going to do. And I have no kids, but my sisters do, have a bunch of them, and they raise their kids that way. Their kids are very well-behaved, and if they start acting up, all my sisters have to do is to look at them, and they immediately clean up their act. It works. Called punishment. It works. Unfortunately, there is no punishment going on at the Federal Bureau of I'm With Her, or the CIA, or the NSA, or anywhere else. They just do what they want, because when they get caught breaking the law, nothing is done to them. That is the problem, Mr. Horowitz. That is the problem, Mr. Wray. That is the problem, Mr. Barr. That is the problem, Mr. Durham. All of you need to use a little common sense and think about this. You want to stop this shit, you don't need a single new regulation. You don't need a single new rule or law. What you need is to throw these son of a bitches who we know broke the law into jail for a very long time. And you won't need any new rules or regulations. Believe me, that will clean up the problem. And these people will start playing by the rules. As I said, I am 100% for abolishing the CIA. I want to repeal the entire National Security Act of 1947. I want it repealed. I'm done. I've seen enough. I have seen enough. I don't trust these people, yet here we have Huckleberry Horowitz, the cleanup man, the custodian, putting out report after report after report showing the crimes and the misdeeds and the malfeasance of the coup plotters. And the Penguin doesn't want to have any hearings. The Bug-Eyed Fool doesn't want to have any hearings. Pelosi Galore doesn't want to have any hearings. They're not interested. And Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray wants us to believe that he's put in place some tough measures to make sure these things don't happen again. Attorney General Barr is saying the same thing, that he's got a plan to make sure that these things don't happen again. Why? Because he, Attorney General Barr, is going to make sure of it. But here's the problem, Mr. Barr. What happens when you're not Attorney General anymore? You ever thought about that one? What, are you going to be Attorney General for life? I don't think so. No, that's not how you handle the problem. You handle the problem by throwing the criminals and the coup plotters in prison. Prison. How hard is this? It's not hard. Now, James O'Keefe of Project Veritas went to New York, and he actually put himself through a coronavirus test. And in doing so, he had a conversation with an Army National Guardsman, and O'Keefe was asking him, hey, so how bad is this thing? What's it look like to you? And the whole 9 yards. And this National Guardsman saying, well, it's just the flu. It's just the flu. And he says that he believes it's all overblown. And the media coverage certainly is overblown. And I don't know about many of you, but I'm sitting here the last couple of days thinking about this, because we were told last week that this week was going to be the week when the shit was going to hit the fan. And so I'm watching the numbers very carefully. Now, here where I live, yeah, our numbers are going up. Of course, we're testing more people. We're finding more problems. But we still have a very low rate of people being afflicted with this. Not much more than the normal flu or bronchitis or influenza. It's about the same numbers. And the death rate, is still below 2%. And now where I live, here in Butler County, Ohio, we have no deaths. I checked on Sunday night, and we have 28 confirmed cases and 0 deaths at this point. I'm looking around the country at the map, and it appears that the only places that you have really fairly serious problems are places like Los Angeles, Washington, and most of that occurred from that one nursing home, although that spread, obviously, to healthcare workers and others. New York has a pretty big problem. Los Angeles has a big problem. These large cities run by liberals who were out there telling people, just 2 weeks ago, Comrade de Blasio was telling New Yorkers, no, go out and celebrate, go out and have dinner, go out and dance, go out and do whatever you normally do. Forget about it. That was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. No wonder they have a big effing problem. No wonder they have a big effing problem. But when you look across the rest of the country, what we call flyover country, you know, the numbers look a lot like influenza. They look a lot like, you know, the swine flu. They look like a lot of other type of flus that we've seen. We've never shut down the country because of it. And it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder the level of fear-mongering. And then we find out that Dr. Fauci is a good old boy, deep state good old boy, friend of a lot of the deep staters and the rotten reverend. And now we find out that this other woman, Dr. Birx, we find out that, like Dr. Fauci, she's very connected to a lot of deep state actors. Her husband is a former Bill Clinton advance man, and she herself worked with the Clinton Foundation on HIV, and what they were primarily doing at that time was doing what they're doing now, pretty much driving panic. Because if you look at the two people who've been driving the panic the most, it's definitely Fauci, but also this Dr. Birx. Now, she did come out and make a statement yesterday about, or day before yesterday, about the fear-mongering about there not being enough hospital beds or whatever, and she kind of jumped at the media on that. But for the most part, she and Fauci are the ones who really are the reason why we are basically shutting down the U.S. economy. Now, fortunately, where I live, and I don't know, but I'd like for those of you, if you could, in the comments section, to just give us a sense of what's going on, where you are, what city and state you are in, and what you're noticing as far as business closings. Because where I live, most businesses are open. They have different hours, and they're conducting business a little differently, but for the most part, the economy hasn't ground to a halt where I live. There's not people going out to places like bowling alleys and dance clubs and bars because they can't. But like just about everything else, most people I know are still going to work. There's different, we're doing different things. We're wearing gloves. We're wearing, protective gear. We're staying our distance from people. But for the most part, the economy hasn't shut down here where I'm at in Southern Ohio. Other than, even most of the restaurants are doing, you can call and do carry out. They're doing a lot of door-to-door delivery. I've had carry out 4 or 5 times in the last 2 weeks. I went to Frickers on Saturday night and got chicken wings carry out. Walked right in to the front counter, and they had my order ready. They had a sign at the front of the door, please keep, 6 feet away from the person in front of you or behind you. There was 3 or 4 people in there. We got our carry-out orders and walk out the door. Everything's fine. So I'm not seeing, there's not been it's not like you drive through Butler County, Ohio, where I live, and you see where all the businesses are closed. No. Gas stations are open, mini marts are open, grocery stores are open, factories are open, because everything's connected to everything in the economy. If you take one sector, you can't take one sector out, it affects everything because everything's connected. And where I live, we're not seeing, other than things like entertainment and things like that, but the actual, industries that are needed to produce things and get things to market, all those types of businesses are functioning pretty much around where I live. We're functioning differently, but we are functioning. But it seems like there's a group of people, particularly around Trump, particularly Fauci and this Dr. Birx and others around them. And, of course, the media giving us their 24-hour round-the-clock fear porn. Now, when Trump shut down the travel ban with China, and when he put together the task force, the left-wing media was hysterical about him being a xenophobe, and it was nothing worse than the flu. But now that he's taken the extraordinary measures that he has been asked to take and motivated to take by these people around him, who we now know are connected to deep staters and the Clintons, now that he's doing all that, he's not done enough. You see, he can't win. He cannot win. As far as these reporters that I wouldn't even have reporters at these press conferences. Or if I did, I would not be taking their live questions. They are turning it into a political circus. I wouldn't tolerate it. I really wish that what they would do is tell reporters no more verbal questions. When you show up here, if you have questions, write them on a card, give everybody an index card and a pencil, let them write down their question, and then let someone screen those questions before the president gets them, and then just give him a stack of legitimate questions. So there's no more opportunities for people like Jim Acosta and these others to play their silly games. That's my recommendation to the press secretary at the White House. I really hope you'll take my recommendation. Now, again, I mean, if you would, in the comments section, if you don't mind, state the city and state you live in, and whether or not you are noticing a lot of your economy being shut down, or businesses being shut down, or if it's just the non-essential type things like restaurants and bars. Just if you could put that in the comments section, I'd be interested in seeing what it looks like everywhere else, because it certainly doesn't look like that around here. Now, we had Barack Hussein Obama, one of the major coup plotters, who was taking a shot at Trump yesterday on the coronavirus, comparing it to climate change. Climate change. Obama, you're an asshole. And in fact, just about every government bureaucracy that Trump inherited from you, he's had to fix. He's had to fix because you let the whole thing go to shit, Mr. Obama. You are a massive failure. A lot of the problems that Trump has, he inherited from you. He's in there cleaning up your mess. So to you, Mr. Obama, I say, shut the up. Go back in your hole and wait for your indictment. That should be coming. Well, it looks like we have a Democrat, Nydia Velasquez, who has possibly tested for coronavirus. She was in close proximity to Madam Botox, Steny Hoyer, and even Kevin McCarthy. So let's hope that Kevin McCarthy does not come down with coronavirus. So what happens if we find out? Because we're told now that in the next 2 weeks is the key part of this whole thing. That we're going to know at the end of the next 2 weeks, by about the middle of April, how bad this thing's going to be. What happens if we get to the middle of April and we find out that, well, things are tailing off, the death rate never exceeded more than 2%, in fact, below that, that it mostly only affected people with pre-existing health conditions or people who are, very elderly, 70 or above, and that for the most part, it was a fairly minor event. Much like influenza, bronchitis, and some of the other flu strains that we see that come around and actually kill possibly more people than even coronavirus. What happens if it turns out that this thing was way overblown? What is going to be the reaction of most people who've now had their lives turned upside down, schools closed, billions of dollars in the economy lost, millions and millions of dollars lost by employees, by employers, the entire country turned upside down over this fear? What happens then? Well, there's going to be a lot of pissed off people, that's what. And they'll be looking for someone to blame. I think we all know who's going to be targeted for the blame. It'll be very important to make sure we set the record straight. You can bet I'll be doing it. Tucker Carlson is saying that the reason that he said on his show the other night that he believes Biden is going to be replaced and is not going to make it is because Democratic Party insiders told him so. Democratic Party insiders told Tucker Carlson that they know that Biden's nuts, losing his mind, and will have to be replaced. They're just waiting for the right time. Apparently it isn't now, but they know it's coming, just like everyone else. Me and many other people were saying this before he even threw his hat into the race. I've been saying it since day one, before he threw his hat into the race, but once he threw his hat in the race, I said, many of you know, have been watching my videos, he ain't going to make it, man. This guy is losing his marbles, and it's a very progressive disease. I know. I've had 3 of my 4 grandparents. 2 suffer from dementia. 1 died from Alzheimer's. I know what it looks like. And I've known other people, and not even immediate family members, but I've known other people. I mean, when you get elderly, your mind starts to go. Some people's mind stays fresh. I know a guy that's 90-something years old, and his mind is sharp as a tack. But I know other elderly people that are in their 60s, and they're losing their minds already. It's just different people. It's different. But yes, it's it's obvious, and everyone knows it. But we continue to play this silly game, and they continue to let Brisbane Joe go out there and embarrass himself. And I quite honestly think it's elder abuse, and I believe his family should be ashamed of themselves, and Democrats should be ashamed of themselves. Well, based on the latest interim report, we'll get the full report with all the details, the dirty, dirty details from Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz. We'll be getting that here shortly. But just based on the interim report, Jim Jordan has written a letter to the head of the Judiciary Committee in the House. That would, of course, be the Penguin, Jerry Nadler, demanding that there be hearings about this. But, of course, that's not going to happen. NADS is not going to have any hearings on the FISA abuse because it will bring up a very a lot of very uncomfortable topics that, and take him down a road he doesn't want to go, along with other Democrats, to expose the coup, which is still ongoing. It's just taken on a different form. No, what is going to be pursued next by the Penguin and the Bug-Eyed Fool and Pelosi galore, what they'll be doing next is trying to impeach Trump over his handling of coronavirus. That's what's coming next. Watch and see. Are they that crazy? Are they that out of touch? Are they that stupid? Yes. And on top of that, they're a little evil on the side. As Frank Zappa once said, dumb all over, a little ugly on the side. Dumb all over, a little ugly on the side. Dumb all over, a little ugly on the side. Yes, that's right. That's right, dumb all over. I believe that was on the You Are What You Is album. You Are What You Is. If you have not sat down with a really good buzz, I might add, and listened to Frank Zappa, You Are What You Is, I highly suggest that you do that. Now will be a good time because we're all pretty much hunkered down. Get together whatever substances you prefer and put on your You Are What You Is Frank Zappa album and make sure you have a copy of the lyrics handy. And just listen to it. It's a great record. And the lyrics are fantastic. The entire album is about You Are What You Is. One of the great philosophers of our time. I miss him a lot. Frank Zappa. You are what you is. You ain't what you're not. A cow don't make ham, so give it a shot. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys stay healthy, and I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you. Bye.